Hi guys, this is Maria Soul, and I'm here with Heather Woodworth and Nathara, and we're talking about how heart-centered businesses are basically a bunch of bullshit, and how you should not listen to them, not completely at least. And yeah, here we go.
Yeah, so I was looking up to try to figure out what the difference is between heart-centered marketing and non-heart-centered marketing, like how folks who use this delineation are identifying themselves. And the idea is that your business is designed to serve people instead of just selling them a product, which is kind of like the foundation of business in general. So it's kind of like this weird, obviously you're not going to be able to sell people stuff that doesn't do something for them.
Especially if you're a life coach or a psychic or a tarot reader, your whole business model is based on service. So it's kind of what's the word? It's sort of redundant. Right. Because if you are in those fields, then you are by nature heart-centered, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why the term has always been kind of bullshitting me. Yeah, that's the nature of the biz. If you're not putting your customers first, you're going to go out of business real fast because nobody's going to give a shit. If you're trying to just sell me something that isn't about me having an easier life or being happier in general, you're not going to be able to sell things very well. So I was trying to find the history of the term, who came up with it, who started using it, that kind of stuff. What was the context for this trend? And I couldn't figure out exactly who started it first. There was I tried looking in magazines and looked at Wikipedia, who coined the term and stuff. And it's been around since the early 80s, but no one's really credited with starting it. But I did figure out through cruising the Googles and searching books on Amazon for the term heart-centered, that it really came into fashion in 2014. Books started coming out with the title in it a lot more in 2012, but there is a glut of them in 2014. The earliest book on Amazon was published in 2004, and it was called A Heart-Centered Leadership, An Invitation to Lead from the Inside Out by Susan Steinbrecher and Joel B. Bennett. So, and I did that just by searching Amazon for books with heart-centered. So 2014 is when it really, really took off and became the marketing term du jour.
You're not concentrating on the money aspect or how much money you're spending or gaining. You're just thinking about the client more than the money.
Yeah, and it's kind of this cheesy way to say, I do this business because I love serving people, and the money is just a bonus. Which is bullshit.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm gonna call major bullshit on that, because you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't want to make money from it. And it's the whole thing where in tarot groups and stuff, they say, oh, if you have this gift, you should give it out for free. And I guess that would be heart-centered. But then you have tons of heart-centered business women who go, no, but it's a service and it's an energy exchange and we have to make money. This is our livelihood,
that's
blah, blah, blah.
That's how they justify it when you get those criticisms, I'm assuming.
Business is business, and how you choose to run your business is fine. I mean, there's plenty of ways of doing it. And, when you are more of a feminine entrepreneur, you do tend to lead with more of a feminine touch, which is more about community and more about getting to know people. But that's only one way of doing business. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm all for businesses focusing on service and wanting to genuinely serve people instead of just selling them crap they don't need that isn't actually going to make their life better. That's generally a good thing, but that shouldn't be something that makes you special. The anomaly should be the people who do that stuff, sell you useless stuff that's not the people who don't. I mean, and I make my money doing tarot readings and stuff, And I do tarot readings because it's the thing that I can stand doing to make for money. If I didn't have to make money, I would probably just do tarot readings for my friends or when the whim strikes me, and I wouldn't set up shop.
Do you consider yourself a heart-centered entrepreneur, though?
Like by default?
Yeah.
In the same way that any other reasonable entrepreneur is. I mean, that's just the way you do good business. Like, I'm not a scammer trying to sell you something that you don't need.
Right. Because I always, in my marketing, I always said I was a heart-centered person, but I'm really not. I lied. I'm just going to tell you right now. I never felt that was a thing. Like, I always felt like either it's your personality. I mean, it's driven by your personality. I mean, if you're a go-getter person, then you're going to have a go-getter business. It's just how it is. If you're more of an introverted person, you're going to have an introverted business. So I never really thought of myself as a heart-centered entrepreneur. I just used that because people thought that was cool, or that, somehow that made me more spiritual. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's what most people are doing. Like, I do not use the term heart-centered because I'm like, that's redundant. That's a nonsense word that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, I changed my verbiage to be a witchy entrepreneur because I was trying to get away from that whole aspect of heart-centered because I wasn't really sure about it. But then you see all these women who say they're heart-centered, but they're cutthroat as fuck, and you're like, okay, you're not heart-centered.
Yeah, and it's just, they're not coming from like a place of service and wanting to do good in the world. They're really just about like getting those dollars, and I don't care if I'm actually helping anyone or not. And I think they're really more abnormal than normal.
You think so?
I do. I think most people will genuinely want to like put good things out into the world. Mm-hmm. At least entrepreneur-wise.
Yeah. I mean, I never used heart-centered verbiage in any of my stuff, from what I can tell or from what I remember, only because I never felt like if it was me, because I always feel like heart-centered businesses are very like cheerful, and not saying that I'm not cheerful. I'm just like, it just feels very, I don't know. Like, very fluffy, very fluffy. And I hate to say that word, but yeah, or not that they're not serious. I mean, I'm pretty sure that a lot of heart-centered businesses have like really good material, but I feel like if it always gave me the impression like the person was only selling you the surface level, the first level of whatever it is that they were promising. They wouldn't go into like the deeper, more important stuff, the stuff that will last you a lifetime, because that's really like, well, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, obviously, that's going to last you a long time. Sometimes it's not pretty. It's not nice. It's something that you have to work through. So I feel like sometimes their material was like very like, like, we're not going into the dark stuff of this material. We're going to stay away from that and just go to like the really nice stuff that everybody loves to do.
So like heart-centered is in the same vein as like Dorian Virtue. We take out all the bad cards because we don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And for me, like, I grew up, my dad always had his own business. So like, it's just a given that if you have a business, you're trying to make people's lives better, because people don't buy stuff that makes their lives worse. It's hard to sell that kind of product. I mean, like, now that I'm older, I get that like that does happen, but it's not a good business model.
I feel that a lot of women hide behind heart-centered when they're really not. And I feel this happens a lot with life coaches, especially, where they really are trying to make they're trying to make that $10,000 a month model that everybody wants, or the 100K model, as they call it. And everybody wants that 6 figures. And so they put themselves under this moniker of doing it because they're heart-centered and because they really want to help people. But that's really not their end game. Their end game is trying to make that goal.
Yeah. It really has just become like a buzzword to sound good and make better sales. And that's why I had to look and be like, where did this word come from? What did it originally mean? Like, what was it supposed to be getting at originally? Because for me, it just sounds like a slick marketing jargon, like a buzzword.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely is a buzzword, but I guess how many of these life coaches and how many of these tarot business people or spellcasters or metaphysical people, how many of them are really truly living heart-centered? I guess that's my question, because I just feel like there's such a discrepancy between what they are putting out there as far as marketing and how they are truly living on a daily.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really what you wonder about. Like, we talked about, like, you know, during Virtue before, and before this conversation, we were talking about a couple other major players in the New Age community, and it's amazing that they seem to make alliances rather than friends, which is something that, like, you see in the YouTube community. And, like, all these YouTubers hang out, but they all seem to have business interests in mind instead of genuine friendship. And that seems to be true of the people in the heart-centered community. They approach everyone with the idea of friendship, but they're really looking to make some kind of business deal.
And I get that on a certain level, because, I mean, I know that, like, Pat Flynn, and I know that, like, a lot of other marketers really go with that model. They say the fastest way to build your base is to piggyback on somebody else's base, but do it in a very, like, friendly way, and make sure that both of you are getting something out of it, and make sure that that's right on the table, that that's what you're doing. So I get that, and it is the fastest way to build your business. I think I've always had a problem with it, because I don't want to use people to climb the ladder, and I think that people kind of confuse that premise with, like, let's just step on the people's backs as we climb our way up. I think with women especially, we get into that catty mode where, like, this person stole my thing, or this person did this, or this person did this. So now I'm not in alliance with that person, but I'm in alliance with this person. And now I'm going to use this person to get where I want. And then they forget that, hey, heart-centered doesn't mean stepping on the backs of other people. Heart-centered means actually being heart-centered, which is, like, empathic and really thinking about the good of all and thinking about community.
Yeah, and I think they kind of take the premise too far. Like, the heart-centered idea was about putting, you know, making sure you put out a service and a product that benefits the people you're selling to and will improve their lives and not make it worse. But instead, they're selling themselves like they're going to be your bestie, and then they're not.
They're really looking for the money.
Right. And so, like, as long as you're buying their service or their product, they act like you're friends, but they really don't care. They just see you as a dollar, which was their whole goal to begin with. So, like, in effect, like, the whole heart-centered idea was to say, like, we specifically are setting out to be genuinely an asset in people's lives, to genuinely make them better, and instead it has turned into a genuine scam.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I like the way you said that, because that's really how it feels sometimes. I mean, I know some heart-centered entrepreneurs who are just really, really in it. Like, they are doing the service because they feel genuinely like they are supposed to serve the world, and they are really trying to make something of themselves. And I remember when I first got into coaching, that was my mindset, was this idea that I really wanted to do better for myself and for others, and money was part of that. Like, if I can make money for myself and I can teach other people how to make money, or do something really genuine, and we all can make money, that would be great. And as I got farther into it, I think I forgot what that meant, because everybody else was doing it for this whole other reason. It turned into heart-centered entrepreneurs make more money, and that's how we respect ourselves, and that's how we stay high vibe, is by creating premium programs and by making more money. And if you're not making more money, then you're not serving the world, and you're not serving yourself, and therefore you're not heart-centered. It's like this whole weird spiral of shame almost.
Yeah, it's like the money is your confirmation. It justifies, not justifies, but it, like, validates you. Yeah, so if you're not bringing in those numbers, then you're not a valid person.
I've never saw it that way.
And your mission isn't valid.
How do you mean?
Like, I never saw it as, like, oh, to like, your value as a life coach or as a light worker, it would be, or heart-centered, it would be like how many, well, I can see like, you know, like, the more money you make means the more clients you have and the more people that you're helping. Like, that I can kind of understand.
I got very, very stuck on the money goals, and I got very stuck on this idea that if you're not a six-figure coach, or you're not a six-figure tarot reader, or metaphysical new age person, whatever the fuck you want to call it, but that you weren't good enough. Like, until you made over 5 figures, you were just in the trenches and you were low vibe. There is this precedence that you have to tell people, you have to be transparent, you have to tell people how much you're making, and you have to tell people how many clients you have and what you're doing, and that's so that you can pump people up. And I always felt this huge amount of pressure to make these larger numbers. And so like I've said this before, but I was making $6,000 to $8,000 a month and thinking that I was failing as a coach.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that.
That's okay. On average, my sales are, I went back and did the numbers, and on average, every sale was about $2,000 per person.
That's impressive.
That is impressive.
See, now that I'm talking about it, now that I'm not in the field, yeah, that sounds really cool, right? So I'm getting 3 to 4 clients a month at $2,000 a pop for 6 months of coaching. So 12 sessions.
Wow.
And I'm thinking I'm failing because I have not hit the beautiful 100K 6-figure dream that everybody goes for. And so there was a time where, like, after 6 months of doing this, I kind of gave up because I was like, well, I'm never going to hit that 100K because I can only get 3 or 4 clients a month. And that must mean I'm doing something wrong. I must not be high vibe enough, or I must not be heart-centered enough. And I always felt like a failure. And the minute that I stopped getting clients, I felt better about myself because, wow, that pressure just went away. It's a very strange feeling to be successful, but not feel successful.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. It's the whole, like, keeping up with the Joneses, though, like,
definitely
wanting to be seen as successful as everyone else, to be seen as, like, competent and be recognized in your field.
My issue was never when I was going into, like, the whole tarot and all that stuff. My issue wasn't like, oh, I'm not making like 6 figures. My issue was like, I don't have a website that's nice enough, or I'm not, like, I'm not using all these other avenues as much as everybody else. Or it was more like the sense of that I wasn't working hard enough, or wasn't doing enough, or I didn't have the money to fund it. That was my issue, and I was just like, yeah, fuck this. Excuse my French. I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna bother with this anymore. I'm not gonna bother with Charlene, what she just said, like, keeping up with the Joneses. I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna just have what I have, and I'm happy with what I got. Like, I can't invest in, like, a really fancy website or anything like that. I don't feel the need for it. I still get the same amount of clients that I would if I had, like, the really fancy website with all the fancy gadgets on it and all that stuff. I still get the same amount of clients. I proved myself, wrong in that sense, but it took a while to get there.
I used to think my websites were totally crap. And then, like, I stopped doing coaching, like, the last year. And I came back to him, like, these websites are phenomenal. Like, who made these? And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot I did.
I'm just applauding you over here. Bravo, bravo.
But it's like, I have some really, really catchy, like, colors, and some of my marketing, like, I read through my marketing, I'm like, this is really good. Like, why did I think this was good enough? And there was this sense of, like, well, I must not be heart-centered enough, or I must not be this or that, or I do follow a person, and now it's not even, making $100,000 or a 6-figure coach is not even good enough. Now we're into, if you're not a 7-figure coach, you're not good enough, until you're that. And I'm like, dude, the numbers keep going up. It's like 6 figures is not even enough now. Now, if you're a coach and you don't want to make $1 million, you're not heart-centered enough. And I'm like, but that's so much pressure to put on a person. Like nowadays, if you're not making $10,000 a client or $50,000 packages, you're still in the low vibe. And I keep saying that word low vibe, but that's what they call it. They say, well, you're not living up to your full potential. And do you know how many trainings I have that tell you that if you're not in the 6 figures, that you're not where you're supposed to be? And I don't know how that is heart-centered. I don't know how putting pressure on people to make these high numbers all the time is good, because, like, I've done the research, and did you know that only 5% of Americans make over $100,000 a year?
Yeah.
5%.
Yeah.
Wow.
the average person makes between $2,000 and $5,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no difference between somebody who makes over 100,000 and somebody who makes over 500,000. Their quality of life does not go up.
Yeah, it's really, really wild. And it's, you have all these programs that are like 6 months to six figures, and then we can go into the whole realm of like spiritual elitism. And that's just a whole other ugly topic unto itself. And it gets so wild because, you know, here you have, you know, these coaches or readers or whatever talking about how, you know, they make so much money, but then they don't have relationships with the people who are buying from them. Like, they don't have any, let alone a good one. And that's not very hard. So that's very like you-centered, like self-centered, which is not a flattering word in our culture. So it's a weird dichotomy, a weird setup that we have in that whole heart-centered culture, I guess. And when I was looking at all these articles and just Googling the term heart-centered, you know, especially heart-centered business, it kind of made me sick, because it's just talking about like heart-centered leadership and like why you want to do these things. And like, it was just like article after article after article, like trying to explain to people why they either want to have a positive relationship with their customers or why they want to have a positive relationship with their employees. And it was like, if your employees like you, they'll do better work for you and they'll be more loyal, and that's good for your bottom line. Like, I'm so glad that we are motivating people to be nice to their employees by tempting them with dollars. Like, what does that say about our humanity? Like, you aren't going to be nice to them just because you'd like them to, like, not hate their lives?
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing about being a leader, though, when you really step into leadership, you aren't going to be liked. That's just how it is. You're going to have to make decisions that nobody else wants to make. Mm-hmm. And that's part of being a leader. You have to think about the greater good, and you have to think about your business and the people as a whole. And sometimes you have to make those bigger decisions that people think are crazy and you're not going to be liked. And then once they figured out why you did it, then it makes sense. But in that moment, it does sometimes feel like you're taking sides. And so this whole idea of being liked, I don't know. That's not leadership to me.
Well, and a lot of the marketing and stuff, like, and I remember this from like my previous corporate existence, like, you know, from the bottom level, like, what made us like people is when they were like competent and fair.
Right.
Yes.
You know, but then like you talk to the management literature and stuff, and they're like, bring them donuts sometimes. And we were like, no, know how to do your job and act fairly. Like, if I mess up, tell me I messed up. Mm-hmm. If I didn't, don't tell me I did.
Like, lead. You want them to actually be an authority figure and lead.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't need donut.
When I used to have like a regular job, that's how I actually liked my bosses. Like, if you ask me who they were, like the ones that I liked, they were always the ones who didn't throw their weight around, that they were just like, you know, like if I did something wrong, they point it out and I'd fix it. And, you know, we could have like a normal work, you know, boss employee relationship, and that I could actually, you know, rely on them to be my boss, and then they can rely on me to be their employee. And when it was like that, every time I had a job like that, I did great. Whenever I had a job that the boss was like, I wouldn't say a tyrant, but like who thought that, well, you need this job so I can do whatever the heck I want, or I can treat you however the heck I want, and I could tell you whatever I want you to do, and you have to do it because, you know, you're my underling or whatever. Mm-hmm. Those jobs, yeah, no, I did really poorly in those. Like when I first started in corporate America or what have you, I started being like that. I was like, I'm not going to do this. What the hell you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. And after a while, I was like, okay, maybe this is not going to work. Maybe if I talk to them like human beings, they'll talk to me like human beings. And after a while, I started going like, oh, see, it's working. Okay, this is the tactic that we're going to be using from now on.
I think that's being a good entrepreneur, and I think that's being a good leader is when you are able to step up and say, hey, there's something wrong here. I mean, I think that's great, and I think that's partly why a lot of us move into the metaphysics of the New Age community is because we do feel like we are good at reading tarot, or we're good at coaching, or we're good at telling people what to do to a certain degree, or suggesting it. And I think that's what makes a great coach or a great leader or a great reader. I think what happens, though, is we go into it thinking that, and then our ego leads, and then all of a sudden we're talking about how people are stealing our ideas, or it gets into that whole like thing of like, well, you're not aligned with me anymore because I'm heart-centered and you're not. And that's...
Yeah.
And then the next person that comes along is like, I can't afford this. Well, I'm sorry, you have to pay me because I'm so awesome. And you're like, what?
Or I can't afford this, and you really can't afford it. And they're like, well, you're obviously not thinking high vibe. You're obviously not working your mindset, and you need to fix your mindset. And part of that is true. Absolutely. A part of it is true. When you really, really want something, you work towards it, definitely, and you somehow make the money. However, in the moment, maybe you really can't afford it, and maybe that's where you are in that mindset. And so instead of chastising people for that, maybe say, hey, here's something I have for you that's for free that's going to help you with your mindset. And then when you're ready, let's move forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're not stopping the person from moving forward, because, you know, you're giving them an option, going like, hey, look, here's the next step, you know, like, and to help you get to the point where you can, you know, that your mindset will be ready to spend this money, or to save up for it, or to think that you can afford it.
Well, I've had one of those, you know, free coaching sessions with one of those heart-centered entrepreneurs, and they did that whole like, you can't afford it? Well, can you take out a loan? Do you think you can borrow the money from like your family members or something? And it was like, have a heart, yo.
Like, why would you do that, though? That's the other thing, too. Like, why would you put yourself into that kind of risk?
Yeah, and like, why would
nobody
you
is worth that risk
that I do that?
And,
right.
And I have to, I'm going to say this from a perspective of like a friend. Oh, this is like something that happened to a friend of mine, actually. Now that you're going into like the loans and all that stuff, we're going to call her Betty. Joined a coaching group of some sort. I forgot what they're called. She started taking, there's like a 3-part course that she took, and she wanted to take and each course, every single course is just alarmingly expensive, in my opinion. It's like, I think the last one is like $3,000 or something. So it's really, and it's supposedly like really intense. You have to, it's like, there's actually like a place that you have to go. It's not online. So it's in person and all that stuff. And it's good. I mean, for the most part, from what I've heard, it's a good course. The problem is that she can't afford it. All she does is she makes retainers for a living. She does that on the side, and tarot card readings. That's it. That's all she does. Wow. And she doesn't have a car, and she doesn't pay a lot for her apartment that she owns. You know, like, she bought it when it was really cheap. She doesn't make that much money, yet she doesn't have a lot of bills, but still she doesn't make that much money. She doesn't even have that many pieces of furniture in her apartment. And she's always saying how she doesn't have money, how she's not progressing and all that stuff. And she was like, oh, I'm going to take this class to help me. And every time that she would take the class, she'd be like, I need like an extra $500. Where am I going to get this to pay off, you know, this installment of this payment? And I'm like, why don't you just save up the money and then take the course? Oh, because, you know, I won't be able to graduate with my class, or you know, they were telling me like, you know, that if I really want to do this, I have to find the money and all that stuff. And I'm there like, enough that you won't eat. And I'm there like, are you crazy? Like, I didn't want to say like, are you crazy? But that's what I was thinking. I was like, this woman is spending so much money that she obviously does not have. She's taking out loans, from what I remember. She's taking out loans. And if you don't pay like your installment and you show up for the course, they're like, oh no, you haven't paid. Like, they'll check to see that it has gone through. So it's not like if they're like, don't worry, just pay it next week, or no, it's like, no, you can't come in. That's crazy. Like, I can understand saving up the money for the course, the first course, and then like taking it and then saving up for the next one. Okay, fine. That's fine with me. Or making a game plan on how to make enough money so you still have money for your bills and other things and take the course. But she was like, and her excuse was that she really needed this in her life. She really needed like this epiphany, this sense of, like she was desperate, basically. She was emotionally and spiritually desperate to figure out why her life had turned out the way it was. And I'm like, I get it, because I'm, like, I think we all go through that. We're always in flux. There's always some times in our lives that like it sucks and we really need that journey and we need to figure things out. But not to the point where you can't feed yourself, not to the point where you don't know if you're going to be able to pay your electric bill. That for me, I don't care how desperate you are. I don't care how much answers you need to get, how many questions you need to, you have and you want answers to. I don't care. You still need those basic things in your life to move forward. So I was like, yeah. And she was egging me to join too. And I was like, because if you joined, you get like a discount. Like if you had people to join for you, like, oh, if you get 50% off or something like that on your next course. And I hate to say this, but it felt very cultish for me personally. It felt very cultish because you're supposed to wear white or like there was like one time that they're like, oh, come in all in white. And I'm like, I don't know. That sounds like a uniform to me.
Yeah. They're going to choose someone and you lay on the table and surprise, there's a knife.
And then there's, I sent you guys the website and you guys, and I remember you guys, mind you, this was like a year or two ago. And I remember you guys telling me like, no, yeah, it's, it looks legit. It looks normal. But, you guys were saying like, oh no, don't join because you've already done this work. And it's true. Like I was like, she was like, no, you really need this. And I was like, no, I don't. I've already figured all this stuff out. Like I know who I am. I know where I'm going. I know the path that I want to go. So I don't need it. But if you do, that's fine. Because I didn't know that much about what was going on. As far as I know, she's still doing the same things in her life. Nothing's changed afterwards. But now she's taking another course that is going to cost her more or less the same thing or more to be a coach in that particular field. Nice. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, you went through 3 courses that cost you several thousands of dollars that sometimes you didn't have food to eat, yet you need to pay almost the same or close to the same for something that's going to cost you that's going to be like 6 weeks for you to get a coaching degree in that. What?
Right.
No.
Yeah. So now that you've completed the course, come back and we'll do teacher training.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's very scammy.
Don't like it.
I have taken courses like that. I mean, I did take a coaching course, obviously. It didn't teach me anything that I didn't already know. My business coach was $6,000. So I paid $1,000 a month for 6 months. It was expensive, and I definitely, it did put a strain on my relationship at the time because that was a lot of extra money that we had to come up with a month. But I did it. I'm not sorry for it. I've paid $800 for a course that I still am only halfway through because I know most of it already. But there are courses out there that you can take that are actually really, really good and that actually, move you forward. I think the problem is that, like, it's kind of like Tony Robbins syndrome, like where you said, where you take these courses, they're like so expensive. You go to the conventions, you do the conferences, that's $10,000 right there. And you're not really learning anything or you're not applying it. So then you have to take 7 more courses. And then, like you said, now because you learned it all, now we need to teach you how to be a coach. The problem is that through those 3 courses, hopefully you've learned enough that you can be a coach. And like, why do you need the coaching training at this point?
Exactly.
In the first courses, they're teaching you how to change your life. And the coaching course, they're teaching you how to teach other people the principles so they can change their lives.
Hopefully through your transformative process, you've learned why you do the things you do and you can teach people that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have so many opinions. But it's such a common model, and I get so frustrated, and like, you know, we have a society that really values that whole system of certifications and education and whatnot. And we see that with like colleges and universities and stuff. We don't respect like self-education as much.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, it's kind of a wild thing. So we feel like we need people to validate our learning process. Like, it just feels better if we bought a course.
Well, yeah, like Dorian Virtue, like, totally preyed upon that. I mean, how many certifications did she have for Oracle cards, for all of her cards that are now basically pieces of shit because she's now a fundamentalist Christian? But like,
Right.
But like, how many people put on their titles, "I am an Angel Oracle certified reader"?
Right. And then only to find out that, like, you know, all this angel course material she had put together and all these angel books she had written, and she'd never actually read the Bible.
Or cared.
Yeah, and so, like, that's a frustrating thing. And, like, you know, yeah, I feel for those people, like, but we feel like we need that hand-holding. We need this other person's authority to reinforce our own authority.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way we can even have authority. And that's so frustrating.
It is frustrating, and I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because you're told you need them, but you don't really need them. But in order for that air quotes, heart-centered person to make money, they have to tell you that you need it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and I don't think that's really being heart-centered. If you are, again, most heart-centered women that I know are really in it for the money. And it would just be so refreshing sometimes to hear somebody say, "Hey, I'm going to teach you some really great stuff, and I'm going to teach you how to better yourself, but there's a price, and the price is that I'm going to charge you a lot for it, and you're just going to have to deal with that. Either get on board or don't." Like, that to me is more heart-centered than saying you're heart-centered and then kicking people out of your group because they, air quotes, stole from you, or they're not living up to your standards, or they're no longer friendly to you, or they're not following you and they question what you're teaching because they're learning it a different way. I think that kind of stuff is very healthy. If you're really teaching people stuff and they're taking it, they're going to move on, hopefully, and find another teacher that's above you, or they're going to become a teacher themselves. I think that's very healthy.
Or like getting mad over like coaching infidelity. Like, they're still paying you and coming to you for coaching, but like getting angry and firing them as a client because they also hired an additional coach.
Yeah.
You know, if your clients complete your material, become successful, and graduate and move beyond you, that's a success story that you get to claim for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't you do that?
And people are going to, they really are just going to copy your model because that's all they know.
As if there aren't any original models out there anymore.
Yeah.
There's not. Especially in the coaching business. I mean, there's only a few ways of doing business. I mean, you can go the heart-centered route. You can go the other route, which is, I don't really care to have a following. I just want money. So I'm going to do a webinar. I'm going to show you how to do this. Here's the course. Here's how to do it. Moving on. Next. You know, that is a very good model, and it works, and you can be nice and friendly and help people along the way. And you can be friends with them and be like, "Well, I don't really have anything else for you. That's my only course. So bye. I got to, fill another spot here." I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you're honest about it.
Me. Like, personally, like, I don't know. Like, I would rather have a genuine relationship with people that's, like, just my personal relationship with them. And then, like, this is what I do for you. There, I did it. Now, off you go.
I don't see the point of me trying to, like, hold on to you and sort of, like, try to milk you for all you're worth.
Well, there is that model. I mean, that model works perfectly fine. There's lots of people who do webinars, who have one course, they sell it. Of course, they have their tiers, because everybody has their tiers and membership program, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, there is a lot of people that just do that, and they're perfectly fine with it, and they make lots of money doing that. This idea of having a tribe.
And being the guru?
Right. That came, I don't know, I think it was probably around that same time, there through 2013, 2014, that became really popular. Where if you're a heart-centered entrepreneur, then we need a tribe. We need an army. We need to call them people because of Lady Gaga and her monsters. So everybody kind of...
Is that about when Facebook introduced groups and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have this idea of the group, and everybody's in the group, and it's the hive mind kind of thing where everybody's supporting each other, and that's great and all, but like that's only one business model, and people say they're doing that, but they really aren't. Yeah. They're really using that model to get a sale.
And that's really what's the bottom line is they are really just after the dollars like everybody else. No difference whatsoever, but there's a lot more smoke and mirrors involved because they're saying they're selling you friendship and a more in-depth relationship as well, and they're not.
Yes, and if you're not doing it right, then you must have some bad aura, or you must not have dealt with your shadow self, or you're spiritually bypassing, or all these other fancy things that they call it. And I don't know, like I get very, very stuck. Because I'm like, this isn't heart-centered. This is not community. This is you trying to cherry pick people who you are having pretend friendships with. And then as soon as they don't do what you want, or as soon as they don't live up to your expectation, or they go against you in some way, or it's a perception of that, it's not really going against you, it's really questioning, then they're ostracized from the community. And I have a real problem with that, and I see it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, and there's this idea that like it's for protection, either their protection or the protection of other members of the community or whatever. And like they're trying to save everyone from low vibe stuff. But dissent and some conflict is good for communities. It forces them to grow and to evolve and to approach new topics and new ideas in a way that can expand everyone's learning. Like that's a group learning experience to face conflict together. And it's denying everyone that experience in order to maintain a locus of control.
It's more, I'm the boss. It's very cultish. I think Maria said that.
Yeah, Maria said that. It is very cultish.
There is a cult mentality to it. And I think I just get very frustrated in being in it all the time and really sort of lost my way in all of it, honestly. I mean, I haven't really unpacked this. I haven't really thought about it much since I stopped coaching and since I stopped doing my group and I stopped really like focusing on that. And being away from it, I felt sort of free because there's just all this, or maybe it's just me, but like I took a lot of courses and I'm like, I have to keep up my courses. I have to know what's going on in the field. I have to keep up appearances. And there was just a sense of like, this is what a high vibe coach looks like. And therefore I have to be that. And I know Maria touched upon that where like my website's not good enough. This is not good enough. Like I don't charge enough. There's always like this thing that I'm not doing. I don't know. There's a lot of that too. And I'm not saying that this is just my experience. I've talked to other people who said that they're like, I just gave up because this is really hard to live up to all these expectations.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting and it's self-perpetuating. You know, it's this highly competitive environment. And you never get to a point where it's like high fives. Now you can just coast.
Yeah. Like you always feel like if you're missing something or you're not good at something or you're basically trying to be part of like the cool kids. It's like when you're in high school and you're not wearing like, you know, the really high end clothing. So you try to make it up by buying like the cheaper version of the clothes. And you're like, yeah, let's be friends with the cool kids. And you're just like, no, it's not going to work out. Like you don't feel it, even though they're like, oh, that's cute. And like, they don't mind, you know, but you don't feel it.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally get what you're saying about that. There's this one coach that I was working with for a little while, and I just decided not to work with her anymore because I was getting so frustrated with it. But like one of her things was you should always leave $100 bill in your purse at all times. She had a Coach wallet, and so she says I always keep $100 in my purse at all times. Nowadays I can do that. Like usually at all times I have at least $50 or $200 in my purse. A lot of times I forget about it, and that's fine. But when I first started coaching and when I first started doing business, the idea of having an extra $100 a month just to leave in my purse was just this monumental thing. And that was one of the things that she said that everyone should do. And I'm like, I can't be in this class. I can't be in this class because there's no way that I could do that. There's no way that I can afford, first of all, a Coach wallet. And second, there's no way that I can keep $100 in it. And I felt completely ostracized because of that.
Yeah, and for me, like, a lot of the things that they were peddling were not things I was buying. Like, that kind of sales pitch is not one that works for me. I don't like Coach. You know?
No, I totally get that.
So they because I ran into like the same thing, and they were like, well, don't you want this? And I was like, no, I don't. You know? I'm a terrible person to pitch to because I just I just have this like I don't feel the need to conform. And so I don't know, like it was just very much like, no, I don't need those things. Like, but then I also came from a point where, you know, I had started doing online tarot readings, you know, before I even got into the whole like heart-centered coaching community kind of stuff, like on the social media and stuff. I started doing tarot readings online and stuff, and in the communities for those sites, like they would talk about how like you needed to get your regulars and you had to get them set up with programs and you had to get them coming back like once a week, once every 2 weeks, you had to get them on a program and And I always felt like if I had people coming back to me that often for updates on like one topic, I was failing them. Like if we had to talk about a simple topic longer than like a month or two, then and it wasn't wrapped up and done and they weren't ready to fly out of the nest, then I failed them.
Right.
You know?
I see what you're saying.
You know, like I was not serving them if I was keeping them on the hook for years.
It's so funny because I have clients that talk to me like anytime I'm online for the last 10 years, they've talked about the same thing. It's so funny to me.
I have clients that are like that'll like not for 10 years, but I have like clients that have been like, so I want an update on Justin. And I'm like, oh, for the love of Peter Pan.
I can't do that. I just, you know, I get frustrated and I gotta see them succeed. And it's just not something like I had a client for a few years and she would contact me and then she would tell me about her week and then she would leave. And that was it. She wouldn't even ask me anything.
Like, that's okay because that's like, you know, it's therapy for her. Even though you're not really doing anything, you're not giving her advice.
It was just upfront and open. Like, this is how I'm going to pay you this amount of money, and I just want you to listen to how my week went, and then I'm done. And it's like, okay, that's cool. I'm not helping you with anything. We're not going to have this facade of I'm teaching you something only, but you're actually only using it for a bitch session. Like, there was no falsehood there, you know? And so I'm cool with that. If someone just, like, wants to complain at me for half an hour or whatever every week, and I'm not supposed to help them, that's cool. But yeah, so like this whole idea that you're just going to keep people like in your flock and not let them leave ever is just this kind of not very heart-centered, because that doesn't, I mean, not like the idea of heart-centered as it originally started, because it isn't selling people stuff that they need and is actually genuinely going to improve their lives. It's kind of selling people snake oil that isn't going to do anything for them.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, too. Again, I like statistics. And, you know, the statistics with coaching programs is the same as statistics with dieting. I mean, like, we have less than 10% that actually move forward. And those are the great people who you're like, wow, they took what I said and they really ran with it. And you see them really, really advancing themselves in their life and really taking it to that next level. And that's really cool. But most of the people who you coach with or who coach you, they're used to people just taking it and then going on to the next level and going on to the next level and not really doing much with it and then moving on to the next coach or moving on to the next program.
The next program is the one that's going to fix me the way that I want to be fixed.
I mean, do you know how many programs I've taken for coaching, for business coaching? It's like freaking ridiculous. Like I just went through my OneDrive and I have so many programs that I went through, and like, I think this last year taking off from coaching has taught me more about marketing than all those classes combined. Only because I'm seeing it from a different perspective, and only because like I've kind of gotten really serious about what I want and and who I am as a person. And now, for some reason, I know that if I were to apply that stuff, I'd apply it in a way that is very authentic and very genuine. And I'm grateful that I took those programs, and, you know, we're reading a book together and we're doing all these things together, and that's really great. And we're learning new marketing stuff together. The three of us are. And I think that's really cool.
Love it.
But I think I know, right? But like, this is the first time that I've actually felt like I could actually do something with it, because I don't have that pressure of, I have to make $10,000 this month or else I'm not a good coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do so much better like on self-study than I do with coaching programs and stuff anyways. Mostly because like they always have like these examples that they make up that aren't very true to real life. But when I'm doing self-study, I can go look at the real world and be like, what the hell are they talking about? I gotta go find out how this looks like in real life and stuff.
Yeah, there was this one coach, and this drove me crazy. So she started throwing around these big numbers, like, well, okay, so if you have a program for $5,000 and you get 20 people to sign up, that's $100,000. I'm like, oh, 20 people. And then you think about that, and you're like, okay, so the average coach gets between 1 and 2 sales a month. So who are these 20 people that you are getting to buy this $5,000 program? Because I know a lot of coaches, and I know that they're not selling 20 coaching programs a month, or even in 6 months, they're not doing that much. So where are you finding these people? And then you find out, oh, well, I have 200,000 people on my mailing list. Right. I'm like, okay, well, if you have 200,000 people on your mailing list, then yes, 20 people is nothing. But the average person has less than 5,000 people on their mailing list. Let's just be honest. I have asked people. I have polled. I love statistics, like I said. So the average person has less than 5,000 people on their mailing list. But my whole point is that on a good day, you'll find the higher-end coaches, the 6-figure coaches, have 10,000 or more, which is great. So 20 people to them is nothing. But when you're telling people who are really trying to get to 6 figures in 6 months that they can do $25,000 sales, and it's really easy, you're really kind of being a dick at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like, are you accounting the lead time too? Or are you just like, are you talking from like 0 list, 0 product design? Like, are you just saying like, once you've developed your business and everything's going smoothly and you've been at it for 3 years, then in 6 months you could come up with.
This is how to do it 6 figures in 6 months. And this is how you do it. You put together a webinar in the first 3 months, put together a webinar and a package in the first 3 months, and then the second 3 months you're supposed to do your launch. And by the end of 6 months, you should be selling 20 packages. Like, why isn't that a thing?
Yeah, that's insane. That doesn't include any lead time at all.
Yeah, or this other coach, like I have so many stories. There was other coach, okay, and this one totally bothered me so much. She's like, well, I made 6 figures in less than 6 months. And I worked at my job and made 6 figures on the side. And I was like, wow, okay. Like, so I was super interested in her story. And then come to find out that she worked for a Fortune 500 company. So she hired someone to do her website. She hired somebody to do her marketing, got people to help her build up her list really, really fast. And then she sold a product and everybody bought it. And I'm like, okay, that is shenanigans right there, because most of us don't work for a Fortune 500 company. Most of us can't hire out people to do all this work for us. That's just not how it is.
Shenanigans.
That'd be nice, though.
It would be nice, but it's shenanigans.
That would be nice.
That is severe misrepresentation.
Oh, did I mention that this Fortune 500 company she works for, she did marketing for it?
Cheating.
And she's like, well, it's really easy to make 6 figures in 6 months. And she was like on these podcasts talking about how easy it is and how everybody should be able to do it. And I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, usually people come into this business knowing how to read tarot, or knowing they have an idea of how to serve, or they have a Reiki degree or something like that. And they have no business skills whatsoever. And they're living hand to mouth, most people.
It's like all those stories that you see on the internet that are like, this is how I saved up $100,000 in 3 months. If I can do it, you can do it too. And then you find out like they live with their parents, they're working 3 jobs and their grandma dies in month 2, leaving them a giant inheritance. And then, it's like, no, that's not what you said.
Right.
That is shenanigans. You liar. We
or
assumed
like
you were paying rent and you were not.
Right, we assume we actually had bills and children and stuff. Like the whole idea of, well, how I paid my house off in 3 years, and then it comes to find out that the house was given to you through an inheritance, and all you had to do was pay the back taxes. Yeah. Okay, so that's not really you buying and paying off a house.
No, it's completely not. And you see those stories all the time, and you're like, no, that's not the same. That is not what you said. You completely misrepresented.
Or saying that you've been in the business for 20 years, even though you're 30 years old. So you started the business when you were 10?
Yeah.
Right. Like, no, that's not real. I mean, I don't know. There's all these things, and then they say, oh, well, I'm heart-centered. And you're like, well, that can't be heart-centered. Like, no, like, you can't expect everyone to have a Fortune 500 job. You can't expect everyone to have a Coach bag when they first start out. I mean, that's just not how it is. It's just not.
Well, it's like, which Kardashian was it that got in trouble for the whole, like, I'm a self-made millionaire?
Oh,
thing?
Yeah, Kylie Jenner.
Yeah, like, okay, yeah, self-made, completely. Just like a random nobody off the street, moving out of the trailer park.
Right. Well, she said because she had to pay her own bills since she was 15, that makes her self-made. And I'm thinking, yeah, you've had more opportunities than anybody I know. Like, by the time you were 15, you were modeling and making enough money that your parents didn't have to pay for you anymore. That doesn't mean that they didn't want to pay your bills. It means that they didn't have to.
Like, that's the difference that I think she doesn't get. It's not like, oh, people took a chance on you. No, sweetie, you already had like a following on like Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. You were already a cash cow for other people. So of course you have like companies going up to you and, making offers to you. So it's not like you're self-made. You didn't do any work. You just knew a lot of people and you were born in a very rich family.
She feels like she had to work for the money, therefore she's self-made. I don't think she realizes that people don't have those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, like she has no way of knowing that's not how the world works for everyone, because she's only lived the one life. And I'm sure she did work hard, but she has to, like, it's hard to know that other people don't have those advantages. The doors just don't open for other people like that. And, like, even if, like, her parents weren't calling in favors, like, she probably has no way of knowing that, like, that magazine was worried that if they said no, that she might complain and her parents might hear about it and then things might go badly for them. So they just said yes, and then it worked out okay, so it wasn't so bad.
I don't know. I think there's a misconception with things, and I think the worst part is when you see people who are really, at first, they're going in because they really like what they're doing, and then they start to believe their own bullshit. Then 3 or 4 years in, you're like, who is this person? Like, what happened to you? Like marketing is, you write content and you write marketing materials, and you kind of prop yourself up. But like at a point, you have to realize that, it's 70% true. The other 30% you're fudging.
Yeah, and I'm trying to, like, I'm learning all this stuff about, like, the Instagrams and the YouTubes and about how you have to do this and you have to be on a schedule and you have to make sure you portray this and you have to portray that. And I'm just, you guys know me. I'm very bad at, like, portraying the perfect spiritual person online. It's mostly the swears that give me away. But, I'm just like, yeah, I can't. I love the idea of just like spending an afternoon and planning all my content a month in advance and all, but like I'm also very spontaneous and I change my mind a lot. So I'm not sure I can commit to an Instagram post a month in advance.
That's true. That's true.
You know, like, there's like this facade where like you have to pretend you're all like authentic and super interactive, but then you use all these programs to like schedule your authenticity ahead of time.
Oh no, I fully get it. Like I told you yesterday, my post planner is 3 months ahead. You know, so people think I'm posting all the time and I'm not. I mean, there's posts that are like you said, where I'm like, oh, I want to change that up, so I'll start posting stuff that isn't on my feed. But yeah, every story is self-picked. Every post is thought out. There's that's the truth of it.
Yeah. Well, and then like I have, you know, my website automatically posts blog posts from my website that are more than a month old to like my Twitter feed on a irregular basis. Hourly interval that is not divisible by 24 so that it, you know, isn't the same time every day.
Right.
But like those posts are marked as automated on my Twitter feed. So it's obvious it's not me, you know, posting it. It's obvious that it's been like automated from my website because I just can't bear to be like, I spontaneously thought you'd like to see this post from 2014. Like, I don't know. Just like, no, this is my website. Just thought it'd be nice to remind you.
well, no, I think the authenticity comes from just, you know, thinking through what you're posting and every now and then throwing out the relevancy post. Like, hey, this is what I think about this. You know, I think there can be a level of authenticity when it comes to marketing and when it comes to you know, to even posting things 3 months in advance. I think there is authenticity as long as it's going with your brand and it's going with really how you feel about things. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think for me, this whole idea of heart-centered is bullshit only because there's like 90% of people aren't really there. Like there's only a few coaches in this world that I have met who are like, you're like, dude, that person is on it. Like they really believe what they're saying.
Yeah. So, well, see, and I feel like your automation is different because I have experienced what happens when you go down a rabbit hole and find a whole bunch of juicy links. And like, I wake up in the morning and there's 50 links in the messenger. And I'm like, oh, I found something. And I know like you do that when you load your links into like your post planner.
I do.
And so that's nice because one, it doesn't get you marked as spam that way. And two, you're not like flooding people's timelines because that is rude. So
yeah,
so that's an appreciated thing. And they're really obvious when you do that too on your post planner because there's not like a whole like, hey, love bugs, just thought you would find this really interesting. Give me a shout out if you liked it. Like it doesn't seem like a real in the moment post. You know, but it's like when people are scheduling like those kinds of posts that are like, hey, it's Sunday morning. I'm having a self-care day. I'm going to do a face mask. What are you doing? Tell me what you're doing for self-care. And it's like been scheduled 90 days in advance. Like,
right.
No, that's, you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing that bugs me when someone's pretending like I just posted this right after I woke up, but like really I scheduled it 90 days in advance. There's a difference in that automation style that I feel, but the second example of like, this is my self-care day, this is what I'm doing, is what the heart-centered business field teaches you to do.
Yes.
You know, and that I feel is very, so that people are like, oh, look, she's up on Sunday and she's already thinking of us. That's so great. Like, but it's just a big fat lie.
Well, it's to manipulate engagement.
Yeah. And like have that fake friendship.
Right. The fake friendship is not really there because as soon as you go against something, then you're out. Or as soon as you can't pay for it, you're out.
Exactly. And it's just, that's the frustrating part. Like there's automation that's practical and everybody appreciates that you're not flooding their timeline. And we all know that you're not really tweeting at 4 a.m. And there's also, and then there's like the inauthentic automation that's like, hey girls, just thought of you right now when I woke up. Like, no. That's not cool. And it's frustrating that that's like a behind the scenes thing that people don't say that they do.
I think it's sad. And I would love for people just to be honest in their marketing. I hope this is a new trend where people are just really honest about their marketing and like, hey, I have this program and it's going to cost you a lot of money and you can either do it or you don't. And I'm not going to give you a bunch of fucking reasons why you're not high vibe enough. I'm not going to give you any reasons why you should be able to afford it if you can. If you can't afford it, great, maybe next time. But for those of you who can afford it, this is what I'm doing. You know, like I would love just to see that kind of marketing. If I saw that kind of marketing, I'd be like, I'm on that right there. Mm-hmm. That's the program I'm going to buy. And that's, if I ever get back into the business, that is how I'm going to market. I'm going to market just like straight out. Like, this might be too expensive for you. However, for the rest of you, you're the people that I'm looking for. You're the people who I'm targeting, and I'm not going to shame you for not having the money. I have this other $100 program over here if you're really that interested, but this is what I'm doing right now. Like that's what I want to see. Or we're going to be friends. We're probably not going to be BFFs, so don't get all freaked out. You know what I mean? Like I'm a teacher and a leader, and this is what I'm going to teach you. And if you're in the place where you want to learn this, great. If you're not, that's fine too. Like, I don't know. I guess I would love to see marketing stop being so fucking, like, gross. Love and light. Just love and, like, oh.
Yeah. Gross and fluffy and rot your teeth, sugary sweet.
I see it more with women than men, and I'm not trying to out anybody, but it's this whole idea that women have to be loving and nurturing and fluffy and heart-centered, and we don't care about money. We just care about all these other bullshitty things. And it's like, that's not true. Like, it's okay to be a woman. It's okay to be feminine. It's okay to want to make a lot of money. These are not bad things.
Yeah. I can love mermaids, and I can love crystals, and I can love, singing really terrible folk songs with my girls under the full moon, and also them dollars.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have to be a stripper to love dollars, and I don't have to be a rap artist to love dollars, like.
And if I am a rap artist or a stripper, I can still be spiritual as fuck.
Exactly.
Like those things are not mutually exclusive. You can do both. You can do them all. You don't have to have any kind of like pure love and light. We don't do anything that is sinful kind of facade.
Yeah, it's not about the money. It's about the fifth dimension. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, you don't even know what the fifth dimension looks like. Like, people say that all the time. Like, I'm in the fifth dimension. Like, okay, but you're also a human. And guess what? You have to eat. So let's just focus on that, okay? Like, that's how I feel about it. And I feel like marketing kind of goes into that whole, like, fifth dimension stuff. Where, like, we're so cool and we're so much better. And we're so awoke as fuck that, like, it's got to be high dollar because it's fifth dimension. Whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I don't get it either. Your clients are in the third dimension, so you should probably come back here.
Your bank account is in the third dimension, so I don't know what to tell you about that.
Right, like check in sometimes at least.
Right. And I think that's, I think, and I'm probably getting a lot of slack for this, but I think that the high vibe people are just as bad as the people that say you shouldn't charge. It's like, It's kind of this, it's two sides of the same coin, really.
Yeah, totally. And I was just thinking, like, with the whole, like, fifth dimension thing, you have, in Buddhism, you have the difference between the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. Mm-hmm. Once you ascend into, Buddhahood, people can't perceive you anymore. And the Bodhisattva is just the vessel that's left behind so that people can still interact with it.
But then you're not really being a human. You're not really living a life at that point.
Right. Like, so if you achieve full Buddhahood, you're just gone.
Right.
You're just completely gone. There's no body left behind at all, and so you can't teach people.
You can't do anything.
Because you left, you went to a different realm. And it's like, oh, well, now we can't interact. I got enlightenment, but I can't bring it to you because you're in a different place. Dang it.
Right.
And then, like, the bodhisattvas are like, the spirit has ascended, but the body remains behind, so it can at least teach a little bit as a bridge.
Right.
But, like, yeah, so the whole fifth dimension stuff just makes me think of that. Like, if you're really in the fifth dimension, how come we can see you?
Or how can you say that you're actually learning the lesson? Because the lesson here is to figure the earthly plane out. I mean, that is why we're here. That is why we're in a meat suit. And people forget that. They're like, oh, we need to transcend beyond the meat suit. Actually, we don't.
Yeah, like you came here to do the meat suit thing.
Right. We're going backwards at that point. Like, we've already transcended. I mean, that's the whole thing. Now we're trying out a different version of it. Now we're trying to bridge between ascension and the earthly plane, as above, so below. That's not just words. You know what I mean? Like, people forget that. And I don't know. And I feel like coaching kind of goes into that whole thing where, like, we all have to be high vibe and we all have to be heart-centered and we all have to be at this place of 6-figure, 7-figure. Now it's going to probably go into 8-figure. And if you're not there, then you aren't spiritual enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's absolutely, like, crazy making. And we probably do a whole other podcast on that topic, like why we don't love our physical incarnations.
Yeah.
I like the physical world.
I do too.
Same.
All the earthly heathen pleasures. I'm so in.
I am too. I'm very down about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, the food, the dancing, the music.
Sex.
Other stuff. Yeah. You can count on you for that. I mean, not for the sex. I mean, to bring it up.
Well, really, Maria. Maria is the...
Yeah, I can't help it, okay? I have hobbies, and that's one of them. So...
It's a good hobby.
It is. It so is.
It builds important skills.
It does. It's a little marketing happening there. Hey.
But yeah, so that's a whole other topic, though. But yeah, so the heart-centered thing, I think, is... I don't know. What do we want to say about this?
I think we've said it.
Buyer beware? Is that like...
You can send your hate comments too. Because
I don't think anyone who would see themselves in this podcast would hear it.
I guess what we could say is, like, buyer beware. And, like, if you want to work with a coach, then work with a coach. But if it's to the point where it's like, bleeding you dry and you're not really gaining anything, or you're not doing really the work, or you're not seeing any results from it, don't continue paying for this particular coach, because it probably is not working out with you and that coach. So don't be caught up with the glitz and the glamour of, like, what they show you outwardly, because sometimes that's not true. It's not the honest to God truth. It's like, it's kind of the truth. It's like a semi-truth.
It's never as easy as they say it is. Like, I think that's the real crux of it all. And if you're going to say you're heart-centered, then actually be heart-centered.
Yeah, and like, if you're looking at these terms and someone's saying, like, oh, I'm heart-centered and they're not, or I'm high vibe and you're not, like, ask yourself at least, like, what does that mean? What is this person saying to me? What is heart-centered? What is not heart-centered? What does high vibe mean? How do you know if you're high vibe? How do you know if you're low vibe? Like, what are these words even trying to mean?
Yeah, don't feel like you're being bullied into being something that you're not, or forced to be something that you're not, just because you want to follow the crowd or follow, like, the norm of that other people have put up, saying that this is where you have to be. Find your own form of success. Like, what you think is successful for you is successful for you. It might not be for somebody else, but that's the thing. It doesn't matter what they consider to be successful. It matters what you consider to be successful, and that's just what you should stick to. So don't stick to, like, I have to be 6 figures or 7 figures.
There's this worksheet that I used to do with my clients, where you add up how much you need to live successfully, like with all the bells and whistles, like having a maid and all of this stuff. So you look it up. And you write all that down. And then you write down how much you need in order to run your business the way that you want to. You add those two numbers up. And then you add 20%, because we always forget stuff. So you add 20%, and then that is your number. That is how much you should think about making per year, per month. You divide it by 12, basically, and that's how much you make per month. And when people did that, or when my clients did that worksheet, they realized that they needed way less money than they thought they did to have the life that they wanted. Most needed between $3,000 and $5,000. Mm-hmm. And so think about that. What does six figures mean to you? Because most of us wouldn't even know what to do with six figures, and we don't even need that to have the life that we want. I think it's just being very realistic about who you are and what you want, and being heart-centered, and don't be like me and fall for the bullshit.
That's brilliant advice. I just made a note to myself to do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things I thought I wanted that I got that I was like, I don't know why I wanted this. Okay. Like, you just have to get really serious about really, truly who you are and what you want, and don't believe the bullshit.
Yeah, don't follow the leader. Don't measure your success by other people's wants and needs.
Or what high vibe is supposed to be. Like, high vibe is not a thing.